If there's any questions we have, Mike Wayleen is here with Roanoke and is happy to try to answer those. I'm with the village. I'm happy to answer anything as far as process. This is my first time in here too, so this is an adventure for all of us. So inside, I'm sure Mike can speak to it a little better, but this is not a finished building. There are dangerous conditions in there. That's part of why there are waivers, but certainly watch your step, watch your head, be aware of your surroundings, go slow. The last thing we want is for anybody to be hurt. That's not necessary, and we want to be careful. And with that said, I do want to recognize too, procedurally, some of the members of our Preservation Commission are here. This is a quorum of the commission, so we have Mr. Paul Bergman, we have Ms. Lewis Nickel, we have Jane George, we have Steve Krause, our chairman, right here, and we have 2 absences.
So we have a quorum. Let's get the heck out of here and get in. Let's
get inside.
Started here. Now, unfortunately, we'll have to. I think we can do it in 2 groups.
I think 2 groups might just be enough. We'll try to do our best. Careful.
And unfortunately, the second group will need to huddle together and be real friendly because I don't think there's a place inside for shelter. So why don't we take the commission members and then others and pass out hats and let's get going.
Let's do it.
Are there sizes to the hats? Or does color mean anything?
Not a beauty.
You can have a very important hat.
I want a black hat or a blue hat.
The hotel took up the majority of the building, so most of the areas that the hotel used for their service work and various other functions, along with all the rooms that were dividing up the house, had damaged the original structure. So those were removed, but also a lot of the removal was done for the purpose of being able to understand how the structure was actually built. A lot of the original stuff could not be preserved in many of the areas where the service work took place. So the architects, because we did design this building entirely for the restoration and additional uses that were being contemplated, the architects needed to understand how the structure was put together, what types of modifications and different types of work that needed to take place. So that's what you'll see primarily throughout the building. On the southwest wing, where the open rooms were, a good majority of that has been able to be preserved, that because the hotel had not, gone in there with all the modifications.
When was most of this work done? How long ago?
This work was probably done about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And I apologize because I came to TRG in the summer of 2016. So.
The important thing is it's not recent. It was part of the redevelopment activity and pretty much planned.
Well, this work actually took place, I think it was probably about simultaneously or maybe a little bit after the 2014 approval. All the demo work was permitted through the village. If Drew shows up a little bit later, he might have a little more background on it. Again, it predates me, but everything was permitted. Northworks Architects did the restoration plans, and they really were the guiding principle with respect to what would be taken out and what could be salvaged. So we can go through the main front door.
The condition of the plaster, is that just from the freezing and thawing, or?
A lot of this particular room is really in bad shape. It's because it has a flat roof, and the roof is just, at this point it's completely shot. It's been repaired so many times that it needed to be completely stripped, all the flashings, and the stucco needs to be taken off, and so on and so forth. So
this isn't structural.
No, it's not structural, and this room did suffer some damage as a result of having a flat roof.
You said you had a restoration plan 2014, 2015, so that still exists, right?
The 2014 plan I was talking about was the plan that actually reworked the development for different road configurations and everything. At that point, then we started into a full restoration mode of hiring architects and heat and air, specialists, all kinds of different consultants to look at these buildings and analyze what it would take. And there's also a set of drawings that are associated with that Northworks Architects put together that actually you can pull a permit off of today. So,
So you do have a plan to restore it?
There was a whole plan to restore, absolutely.
That would be a good basis for estimating
Correct. And we have multiple bids that were done as a result of that plan by various contractors throughout the Chicagoland area that are, well-versed in restoration. For instance, Bully Andrews, who did Deer Path Inn, they were one of the bidders on the project. So we have costs that are very solid. Now today they're a little bit dated, so and costs don't go down, unfortunately. So you'd probably see a bit of an increase in those, but they're well-grounded costs. So.
That's probably about 2 or 3% per year right now.
I wish. I wish it was that low.
Good time to be in the construction business.
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go. Again, through the front door, that'll take us into the main room.
Figure we talk all the way going down to this.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
That was the original entrance, yeah.
Yeah. No, this is the original front door.
Oh, yeah? That's something.
Yeah, so these rooms, fortunately, were pretty well left intact by the hotel. You can see that, some of the woodwork has been stripped. Those were test procedures to be able to understand, how the restoration could take place. Everything, for the most part, has been kept dry. We've had some vandalism. Kids break in here quite often and leave, open windows and what have you when it's raining. So, but for the most part, these rooms were able to remain generally intact. Yeah. We haven't spent any particular additional attention to the windows, as you can see, with the exception of board ups, because all of the windows throughout the structure will need to be replaced. None of them would be adequate for energy purposes. There is some asbestos in the caulking that needs to be removed, so all of the windows would have to be replaced.
Even the stained glass, you replace all this?
Well, again, it wouldn't meet energy code, so there might be some reuse available to, or,
A storm or something?
you could put a storm possibly, but it would have to be a completely reconstructed window. Again, some work was done on the plaster to look at its integrity and how it could be restored. Unfortunately, I did have some kids come through and they've kicked some of the woodwork out and broken things, but for the most part, this room's fairly well intact. This next room over here has been pretty severely modified as a result of the various operations that took place between the Priory and the additional hotel uses. So this room, aside from a few remnants of things that you can see along the top of the building, or the top of the structure here, you can see some original painting and what have you, but for the most part they had pretty much changed this. And this was kind of an example of what the hotel had done, pretty much throughout the structure. They had worked over, various components of the original structure that they needed to work around, whether they needed to put electricity or whatever they might have needed to put in, and so that there's really not a lot left with respect to the original historical components. Gotta keep it round up a little bit.
I just want to keep kind of stay together. Appreciate it. Maybe there's a guy right here to.
Yeah.
So we do want to script all the Well, yeah, but some of that hand painting work was actually later uses, so it wasn't, we have
That's
full,
why they started with that. Yeah, we did.
yeah, we have the original
Yeah.
drawings. Right, so this room apparently originally was the billiards room in the original home. Obviously, it had probably gone through various other uses that people might remember, but for the most part, it's generally intact. Again, the plaster was was reworked to look at its integrity. There's been some sandblasting done of the beams, but for the most part, this room somewhat remains in its original condition.
Is this still hot water heating at the time, you know? Probably was.
This, I think this had both oil and some boilers.
Maybe it was hot
it
water
Yeah.
heating, so you got ventilation ducts up here.
Well, again, a lot of this stuff might have been added by the hotel, so virtually all the mechanical work that the hotel had done has been stripped out of the home, but you can't take for granted anything that's in here except for what you can really identify as historical components that, this may have been added later, is most likely. No, but there are some floor registers, and there are quite a few fireplaces, but a lot of which were taken out. Well, there were sprinklers throughout the building, yeah, for the most part. Most of it's been taken down now. They were hung below the ceilings in most cases. Yeah, the hotel was sprinkled. So this room hasn't had the plaster stripped from the ceiling, so we should probably stay out of here just because the weather does tend to drop some of it. But this is pretty typical of the structure in terms of its construction. It's all this clay block. The floors are all steel and clay block as well, and concrete. So the building is somewhat indestructible. It's just very solid and mostly all concrete and steel. Yeah.
With HPC, the information about restoration and your
Yes.
investigation time.
Correct. Yeah. All right, if we can keep moving, let's go down to the dining room area, and then for those of you that want to see the basement, see the second floor, we can do all that.
Lake Forest, no, it's Army Woods.
Oh, Armor Wood, yeah, that one's beautiful, but in that one, that is a wine.
Yeah, that's a white one.
Yes.
Curious about the master bedroom. I don't know if we'll get to do that. But I guess it's, dining room?
Yeah, one of the originals. So again, some of the work that's been done in here was to just understand the materials. The architects wanted to, see what type of restoration techniques could be employed and what have you. But for the most part, this room is generally in its original state. A lot of the plaster and paint or I should say the exterior coats of the plaster would have to be stripped regardless, so there wasn't anything particular being done to preserve that, as it was always intended to be restored.
Are the fixtures warehouse somewhere?
Most of the fixtures from the original home don't exist. There was a number of fixtures that the hotel had put in. There was some fixtures in the main room here that the Priory had put in. I don't know if they've been preserved.
So what was here when it was Harrison House?
When it was Harrison House, that had a lot of that was not the original. So you want to keep moving?
I'm just thinking to myself, these walls look like my skin in the winter. It's kind of moisturized.
All right, watch your step over here. There is quite a few areas where the floor has been taken out. So everything's structurally sound, but this was originally the kitchen area for the hotel. So there was virtually nothing original salvageable in this particular area. Again, the architects needed to see the structure, how the steel worked and everything else, so all of these rooms have been taken out. This would have been the original plaster ceiling for the house, but as you can see, there's dabs of glue on there, so the hotel and some of the prior uses had put some type of a ceiling underneath it.
How come all these bricks are so dark?
They have some type of a coating on them. I don't know if that's actually a waterproofing. Again, I wasn't here when the design work was being done, but I believe it's a coating that helps the plaster stick to the block and probably provides some moisture protection as well. So again, I mean, all concrete floors, wherever there's holes in the floors, that's where various walls and things were taken out that may or may not have been part of the original structure, but were not something historically significant any longer. So if everybody's comfortable, we can walk into the basement. It's not really dangerous, I would say. It's just watch your step. There are some cords down there. We keep some temporary heaters going just to keep it above freezing so that some pumps run and what have you, but
I want to see the master bedroom.
yeah, unfortunately, the hotel, with respect to the second floor, the hotel had completely modified that. So there really is nothing left of anything up there, short of, a few different areas of the home where you can see what we've uncovered. There's a sleeping porch off the master bedroom that shows some remnants of the original, but for the most part, the hotel had chopped things up. They had put bathrooms in every room. They had
Now, when you say the hotel, are you talking about the Harrison?
the Harrison Conference Center, yeah. Because keep in mind, there was large-scale rooms up there, but they divided those into smaller hotel rooms. So there was just a lot of the original structure that they had modified, which again, by the time you take it out, there's no value to it any longer. So, all right, let's take a quick trip down here. There are some temporary lights. Just watch your step. Let me plug these other lights in.
Yeah.
So down here, a lot of the various things that probably occurred throughout the years, changed the different functions of some of these rooms, but it was primarily, originally when it was a home, it served obviously for the heating purposes and you know, storage purposes and different things of that nature. As the different uses came through, they added additional you know, HVAC components and changed you know, some of those uses from what they would have been in the early 20s. But for the most part, there's not much left down here. It's still just, you know, rather structural in a sense because it's just all concrete and beams. But you can see some remnants of some of the different things. There were some old bathrooms here. Some of these rooms, you know, originally housed coal. You'll see some coal chutes. The fireplaces, all the fireplaces throughout the structure drop to this level so they can have clean outs. Watch your step here, there is a hole. But again, many of these rooms were just used originally probably for storehouse type things.
This wasn't open during COVID.
Big basement. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Great. So we can come around this side, show you one unique feature that's down here. So this was changing rooms for the pool. And it had both, you know, men and women's side. And then this was one of the original bathrooms, and there's another one that was over on the other side as well. So again, if any of you missed it, I had explained that this was originally a pool house. Out the door here and up the steps was the original pool from the Jensen, back when Jensen originally designed it. And you can see electrical fixtures along the wall. There was probably mirrors and lights and what have you, so that they could have guests with, you know, there was men and women's side. And, you know, back in the day, they did that type of entertaining. All right, if we could go up these stairs, I'll take you guys up to the second floor. Just watch your step here.
Go ahead. Takes me longer.
So real quick, you can see the stone edge over here. That's actually the edge of the pool. So the pool was in front of that stone ledge. That stone ledge actually, there was a staircase kind of in the middle of it. It's hard to see with all the snow, but that actually was a little waterfall that went into the pool. You can look at the original Jensen drawings and see how the whole pool was constructed. It's pretty interesting, but and the pool may even actually still be buried under there. The previous developer had done some work there that we'll have to explore what still exists, but you can see some remnants of concrete and some of the original features there.
Council rings over there too?
The council ring originally was over there. Right now, it's at the backside of the site. The developer, the former developer had moved it and placed it down in the other side.
The minutes included in your packet actually touch on that a little bit towards the end. They talk about how some of these things have to be relocated.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's head upstairs.
What was this sort of renovation, the stripping?
All this was done as part of the exploration for the architectural work. So when Northworks came in, they gave us instruction on what we should take out to understand the structure, and then did some various testing to see how the materials could be renovated. Yeah, somewhere in there. It might have been 15.
Is this here? This is where they take a reef every year. They didn't want to mess up the paneling.
Yeah.
So they said, you can just put one hole in there for a hook. They used the stupid hole every year. Jeez. A lot of concrete in here though, isn't there?
Yeah, it's all steel and concrete, with the exception of the attic. Yes, 16. Oh, yeah. No, it's solid. All right. So up here, obviously, everything, or quite a bit of the original is now stripped out. The architects were looking at how the structure was put together. It did use a lot of structural steel, as you can see, that holds up the third floor here. We were working on concepts that this could become a ballroom. Got into as much detail as laying out tables, trying to make sure everything worked. Ran into a few problems with this line of posts because unfortunately it's in the way of tables when you start to do table layouts for banquets and what have you. But it's so significantly structural that basically it would have had been worked around, because it would add millions of dollars of additional cost just to try to remove it, because it is so significant. You can see some of the steel beams carrying all the roof loads and various walls above. So obviously this is where many of the original rooms were, but as I mentioned downstairs, that a lot of the hotel rooms had chopped this up into smaller sections, modified bathrooms, closets, and what have you to suit their needs. So again, much of it not salvageable. There's a couple of fireplaces on each end that are marble that have remained, as you can see, because they were still intact. But for the most part, there was really nothing up here of original significance that could be salvaged. I don't know if we should go in the attic. If any of the commissioners want to see it, that's fine, but this staircase is a little rickety.
There's nothing historic.
Again, they're full transparency, but it's just, it's not tremendously safe. And as you can see, it's just, it's an attic. It's not intended to be, yeah. Okay. No. No, but you can see, I mean, there's just a lot of places where people could get hurt in here. Yeah, I mean, the building is very solid. Yeah. Yeah, no, those are, that's why they're still sitting there.
You should probably pay off your mortgage with those two. Yeah.
This was the sleeping porch that I mentioned down below. You can see this has original windows. If you look up around the ceiling line, you can see some of the original beams that were kind of hand hewn and hand painted. But again, that's about the extent of what wasn't modified.
This is a good example of what happens if you have multiple owners over a long
Yeah.
period of time.
Okay.
Shit gets moved.
Right. Yeah. No, that's true though. Yeah.
It's on the mic. It's captured for
Yeah.
all time.
Hot mic here.
Okay, we've got some other folks waiting.
Yep.
so-
Thank you
All
for
right.
the tour, sir.
No problem.
Is that it? Is that it?
Yeah,
Let's go then.
I was mentioning to Glenn, I'm happy to take anybody from the commission that would like to see the attic, but the attic is, you know, an attic and not.
Before we go over to the Ferris house, you're welcome to remain, you're welcome to leave again. It's all on video. Wanted to go grab yourself a warm cup of coffee. So, up to you.
Whole piece of it.
One house in from Lincoln.
Just money.
Okay, let's go down. Richard, lead the way.
All right, we're gonna head down so we can give the others a chance.
We're actually gonna bring another group up here to do it.
He's doing well. He's, well. Let me get this back to the camera.
Do you know that we're gonna take that unit
Has servants' quarters to the west side. This portion here was originally a garage. You'll notice when we go in that for the most part it's got a big clear space in it. I'm sure they originally had buggies, and then into the automobile age they probably had plenty of cars as well. But for the most part, this building doesn't have any significant significant historical remnants left because it had been completely altered for the hotel uses. So go ahead and come on in. There's not too much in here that is of any danger, but there is a section of floor that's been opened up. The hotel raised the floor so that they could put electrical and heat and different things in. But you can kind of see from the walls that this was all, you know, originally kind of almost a subway-looking brick, but again, you know, pretty large-scale clear area for a room of this size. And again, with the guy being in the steel business, you'll see these 24-inch steel beams holding the whole entire roof structure up. There was actually a second floor in here previously that's been now removed. You can see where the old floor joists used to be. Our intent here was to make this kind of a community room that could be used for community functions, and it was designed to have a bar and different things of that nature that could be served, you know, more in community type events. But again, not much left here, but you can feel free to look around, and we can go in some of the other parts of the building. You can't get out of this particular section and into the other sections without going back outside, but happy to show you the rest of it as well. Thanks. Fence repair at Thanksgiving. I just couldn't throw them away. They're only a week old. Again, we took a second floor out of here.
Okay.
So there's a staircase, there's an outdoor staircase right outside here.
Okay.
And then there's actually another staircase that comes in through that door. But we didn't have the intention of utilizing the second floor. We wanted the volume. Yeah, you'll see in the plans that are online, you can see some of the renderings of how it's going to look. It's going to be, kind of a big open, yeah. All right, we can keep moving on here, go through the other doors. So this archway, it was closed in at a later date, but originally this was open as part of the original structure, and it was also open on the back side. You can still see the archway as we go in. But this would be kind of a breezeway where the carts, the buggies and cars would come through. Now the hotel and some of the other uses closed it up. So again, you can see the archway in the back. You can see a couple of windows that have been closed up top here. The light fixture is not original to the house. This area has been modified a little bit. There's actually a basement down there. There's nothing other than an electrical panel down there right now to see, but this was one of the staircases that brought you up to that upper floor. And again, most of this building was servants' quarters back in the day. But again, that portion being the garage. So that's really about all there is to see in here, but
That area was apartments.
yeah.
All bedrooms when I came through here. All show us all bedrooms.
Yeah.
It would be like a big dormitory for servants.
Right.
Nice chandelier.
Not sure what the vintage of that one is, but so these are kind of smaller rooms, but and again, much of this was modified as a result of the uses. But this staircase does lead up to the tower. You can go ahead and go up there. Let's just be careful because it is a steep set of staircases.
Would the the doors original?
I don't believe they were.
They were, okay.
Yeah.
They look similar.
You don't,
Oh, that's the tire bank.
I don't think you can actually get all the way to the top at this point, but
but there would have been like a tank way up at the top.
yeah, there was a tank originally up at the top, long removed.
Looks so big, it looked like maybe it was a spiralers.
No.
Looks so big from the outside, and I thought it was more.
No, it really wasn't. Again, most of this was servants' rooms, so the rooms weren't that large. Yeah, not a whole lot.
And this building probably had the same environmental issues with
Yeah.
lead, asbestos, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
this one actually really wasn't all that significant in terms of getting rid of stuff. It's not just large, and it had a lot of the HVAC had been modified for the hotel. Yeah, missed that piece. It's sound. It needs some new tuck pointing, but I mean structurally everything's sound.
Right.
Again, it's all brick and concrete and steel. So as long as it's kept, the steel suffers if it gets wet, obviously, but the rest of it pretty bulletproof. You know, I don't know. They obviously didn't, if you step back here, you can see that they didn't have concern for this area, but then as it started to approach the roof line, see how it changed into,
Absolutely, right.
yeah.
It's a different brick.
mm-hmm,
That's what you'd see from the outside.
right.
One up there. Yeah, like they're like pulleys or something.
Yeah, again, a lot of the stuff was added by the hotel. I mean, when they had to do all the different rooms, I mean, they had the window air conditioners and, yeah, they added just a ton of wiring, most of which we've torn out. But some of it, yeah. I mean, it's all abandoned at this point. Nothing's, this would require all new electrical.
I can see where this building is really not much to say.
No, again,
Except for the tower, maybe.
yeah, watch your step there, but
Yeah, a lot of holes right
yeah.
here.
No, there really wasn't much left up here that was in its original forms. I mean, a few walls here and there, but for the most part, everything had been transformed to hotel rooms. No, there's no third floor.
Well, there's, keep going up the tower, right?
Well, the tower, just the tower goes above the roof. You can see the roof line there where the brick stopped, or changes, I should say. So the tower goes a couple more floors, but that was just a water tower you know, as its original design, but I mean, right now, there's nothing else up there. The water tower's been removed, so, or the tank. All right. Watch your step. Oh, hotel room. Yeah, so they added things and. It was bathrooms for the hotel room. So you can see there's two different floor levels here, so that bathroom was part of the hotel room over there. That's why there's all the individual doors, because again, these rooms, when it was a hotel accessed, you can see the numbers on the door over there, 329 to 333, so 3 of the rooms were being accessed by that door, and then, you know, so on and so forth. But yeah, these are all after market kind of renovations that were done to accommodate that use. I'm gonna say from the mid-70s to, do you know when this closed down? Was it 05? When did Harrison close down? The late 90s?
I think it was after that.
I want to say maybe early 2000, somewhere around there.
I noticed fire extinguisher that still had a 2006 tag on it.
Yeah, well, that was when it would have been due to, yeah, so it was probably
Right around there.
03, 04.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be there. Okay. Sit with me.
Pretty much. It's all right, Glenn, I'll get it. You can feel free to look in these rooms, but there's really not a whole lot to see. Yep. There is a small basement under this section as well that served to heat this wing. Watch that right there. Yeah, again, just the small apartments, some of which probably, you know, this wall probably remains in its original location, but other walls have been added. And there's a little porch off to the side over here that was converted to a bathroom. So again, we got rid of most of it to see what the structure looked like, how it was being supported.
Was that your bottle of ice?
Yeah, that was back in the day. That was. They probably found that inside a wall, I imagine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was obviously a little porch. You can see the openings, but they had chopped an opening through here to allow this room to have a bath. This was probably a bathroom in the hotel. Yeah. Sure. It's pretty much more of the same. What's that?
Go ahead. I'm assuming that that fire map is.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm sure that is. That,
Yeah, right.
this is a original wall location as well. You can see the floor supported from it.
Yeah, you can see the size of this. The
Yeah,
2x6.
just the nominal lumber size that
Yeah,
kind of
it's
gives
all-
it away.
It's all square cut.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. This was a little porch that was busted, they had busted open to be able to get the bathroom for the hotel in there.
Look at that.
Yeah,
Look at that wall.
yeah.
Here's honestly a fiberglass. It's really.
Yeah, this was probably,
You can see where the shutters were on this wall. You can see it marked on the plastic.
oh yeah, look at that.
So, the Monet?
I'm gonna err a little bit on the second.
No hidden art treasures in the walls.
For that old electric, that was a little more, took a little more oomph to bend that stuff than today's. Pipe benders in town. Yeah.
You know, with just a pretty close to hand. Right. Okay, so this railing that you see here, this is original Howard Van Doren Shaw railing stuff. This you can see in almost all of the servants' quarters, all over Lake Forest and Highland Park. This knob, this newel post with this knob, and these square stiles like this, and the shape of this rail, this is all original Howard Van Doren Shaw work, okay? I can attest to that, I've been in enough other servants' quarters that, yeah, there's no question in my mind that that's original.
I just said you had to teach a course.
Oh, just come right out there. I'm not gonna touch it. Make my run real quick.
Take care.
Come and fill the flower boxes. Every time the geraniums died,
Yeah.
the gardener would come out and replace them, yeah. And that was the gardener's job. Yeah. When do you think the roof was replaced?
It's never been replaced. No, I did some patching. This is not slate, it's steel. We couldn't, if we lifted a piece of slate, it just snapped.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so thin. So yeah, we patched that corner, you can see it from out here.
That slate looks too thin.
Pardon? Now, see, the whole corner is steel. Because we could slide the steel up under it without damaging anymore. See, there's a piece up there as well. Yeah, you can't get on these roofs. We had to do that from a lift. But,
I think that's a thing.
no, this is original. This is all original.
Recently.